10 things one night changed about Teddy Pendergrass.
The truth is a light, a light shining within when you look at
March 18th, 1982, 1:30 in the morning, a winding road in Philadelphia, and a man who was, at that exact moment, the biggest male voice in soul music. He went out that night as one person. He came back as another. And most of what that night actually took from him, you've never heard anybody talk about it.
like I'm trying to understand you.
Number 10, it changed a road.
Things ain't right, I'm losing again.
One night changed an ordinary drive home into the dividing line of a man's entire life. Here's what almost nobody tells you about that night. It wasn't a tour bus, it wasn't a stadium, it wasn't anything that sounds like the end of an era. It was a ride home. Lincoln Drive, in the East Falls section of Philadelphia near Rittenhouse Street. Teddy was behind the wheel of his new Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit, the one with the 1TP plate on it, the one he parked out front of his house like a statement. He was giving a ride to a woman named Tenica Watson, a nightclub performer he'd known for years, dropping her at her house after a night out. That's it. That's the whole setup, a ride home. And now here's the part that gets me. His driver's license was suspended at the time, not for anything dramatic, for unpaid parking tickets. Parking tickets, the most boring paperwork in America. And 1 week earlier, 7 days, he'd wrecked a Maserati, walked away from it, which means that on March 17th, if you'd asked him, a car accident was just a thing that had already happened to him and turned out fine. Then the Rolls got away from him. It clipped a guardrail, crossed into the oncoming lane, and stopped against 2 trees. No other car was involved. The impact jammed the doors shut, and Teddy and Tenica sat trapped inside that wreck for close to an hour before anybody could get them out. Almost an hour, sitting inside the worst moment of your life while it's still happening. And here's the thing about nights like that. Nobody gets a warning. There's no swell of music. You're just going home. Number 9, it changed the peak.
9 times out of 10.
One night froze a man in mid-flight, at the exact highest point he'd ever reached.
Since I've known you.
You have to understand who Teddy Pendergrass was on March 17th, 1982, the day before. Not who he became, who he was. 5 consecutive platinum albums between 1977 and 1981. The first black male singer to ever do that. Not 5 hits, 5 albums in a row that all went platinum back to back to back. His manager, Shep Gordon, looked out at those sold-out crowds and noticed that almost everybody in them was a woman. So he built a tour around it, women only. Shows that typically started at midnight. They handed out chocolate teddy bear lollipops at the door. Women threw stuffed bears and underwear at the stage. If you had a ticket to one of those midnight shows, you already know exactly what I'm about to say, and you've probably never fully explained it to anybody who wasn't there.
Wanna get to know you, I call you on.
The press started calling him the Black Elvis. He bought a mansion outside Philadelphia. And that whole blueprint, The Ladies Only tour got copied for decades. Luther Vandross, Genuine. That was Teddy's template. He was 31 years old. And now here's the detail that I couldn't shake once I found it.
Time goes by.
Weeks before the crash, he taped what turned out to be his last televised performance as an able-bodied man. The song was 9 times out of 10 off his album It's Time for Love. 9 times out of 10.
Give my life reason.
Nobody knew. He didn't know. He got up, he sang it, he went home, and the tape just sat there in a vault, becoming something else entirely.
Since the day I met you, I feel so good.
That's what a peek actually looks like from the inside. It looks like a Wednesday.
I love to give, and I want to give it to you.
Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it.
Number 8. It changed a body. One night ended a man's relationship with his own body and left the person sitting 3 feet away, almost untouched. The physics of it are hard to sit with. When the Rolls jumped the curb, Teddy's head struck the roof of the car twice. The second impact broke his neck. He suffered a spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the chest down, with only limited use of his arms. He never walked again. 6 months in rehabilitation, 31 years old, and the strongest, most physical performer in soul music is learning how to sit up. And then there's the other seat. Tinica Watson walked away from that same wreck with minor injuries. Years later, describing it, she said she noticed him fighting the wheel, then heard one enormous bang. She came out of it with a chipped tooth, and she was the first to say that was nothing compared to what happened to him. Same car, same second, same 2 trees. If you've ever been in a room where something terrible happened to one person and not the other, you know there's no logic to find in that. There's no lesson. It just is. And here's the part that reframes everything you're about to hear. His doctors told him he'd never grasp objects normally again, and they gave him about 10 years to live. 10 years. That was the number written down about him in 1982. He lived 28. Hold on to that, because it's going to matter more and more as this list goes on. Number 7. It changed his name. One night changed the story the world told about him, and that story followed him for the rest of his life. Okay, this part gets messy, and I want to walk through it carefully because a lot of people have gotten it wrong for 40 years. Before anybody knew anything, the rumors started. Who was in that car? Speculation ran everywhere that the passenger was a man, that it was the wife of Julius Dr. J. Irving. Eventually, the passenger was identified as Tenica Watson, a nightclub performer and a transgender woman. And the tabloids took it from there. Add in the suspended license, and add in the rumors about drugs and alcohol, and his recovery got a lot harder than it had to be. The police later discounted the idea that alcohol was a factor. That correction never traveled half as far as the rumor did. Watson herself believed the crash was mechanical. She even raised the possibility that someone had tampered with the brakes. Teddy would only ever say that she was a casual acquaintance. And here's what he said about it years later. When he finally wrote his book, he called it a hurtful road, knowing that people were spreading wrong information about him and wanting to set it straight so people understood he had morality. Listen to that again. A man who couldn't move from the chest down, and the thing he still needed to defend was his character. I'll say this plainly. I think what happened to his name that spring did damage that the trees never touched. Some people think that's overstating it, that the music always spoke louder. I know some of you are going to disagree with me on this one, but he had to carry both, the chair and the whispers. Number 6. It changed the instrument. One night took away the one thing he never imagined losing, not his legs, his breath. Here's what most people don't think about. Teddy Pendergrass didn't sing pretty. He sang hard. That baritone had weight behind it. You could hear a man leaning into a note with his whole chest. That was the entire signature. Now, paralysis from the chest down doesn't just take your legs, it takes the muscles that push the air. The engine that made him him was in the part of his body that stopped answering. And even after he came back, reporting at the time was blunt about it. The underlying power of his voice was reduced by the breathing problems the injury left him with. Meanwhile, he was dealing with severe depression and insomnia for years afterward. For months, he refused rehabilitation outright. So how does a man like that find out whether he can still sing? You're not ready for this. He tested it by quietly singing along to a coffee commercial on television. That's where the road back started. He'd been warned he might never sing again, and he sang along with a coffee ad in his own house to find out. A coffee commercial. And if you've ever been scared to pick up the thing you used to be great at, the guitar in the closet, the recipe you haven't made since your mother died, the thing you're afraid won't be there anymore, you know exactly why he did it that small. That quiet, with nobody watching, because if it's gone, you'd rather find out alone. Number 5, it changed who was in his corner.
Above everything.
One night showed him exactly what the music business does when you stop being an asset. Here's the thing about the record industry. It doesn't hate you. That would require feeling something. In August of 1982, 5 months after the crash, Philadelphia International released an album called This One's For You. The following year, Heaven Only Knows. Both were built out of material Teddy had recorded before the accident. Neither one charted well, and together they finished off his contract. Understand what that means. He's in a hospital bed. His own label is putting out music he made in another life to run out the clock on his deal. The way it came together was this. Teddy needed money for mounting medical expenses, and the label was struggling in a recession with its biggest asset shelved.
So wonderful.
So his manager, Shep Gordon, went and found unreleased tapes. That's what those two albums were.
And it's the only thing that
And at least one music historian has argued that material had originally been passed over as not good enough to put out. Now here's the detail that stopped me cold.
is so wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
The lead single off This One's For You was a song he'd recorded before the crash, called This Gift of Life. He wrote and sang that as a healthy 31-year-old. It came out as the calling card of a paralyzed man.
I'm so thankful.
And when that contract was done, and he finally decided he wanted to go back into the studio and make something new, he couldn't find a label that would sign him. The biggest male voice in soul music, 2 years earlier, couldn't get a deal.
I'm so thankful. Lord knows I'm thankful to be.
Number 4, it changed who saved him.
Tonight our hearts will beat as
One night meant that when Teddy Pendergrass finally came back, he came back leaning on a 20-year-old girl nobody had ever heard of.
that's not waste.
He eventually signed with Asylum Records, finished his physical therapy, and in 1984 released an album called Love Language. 2 years of silence, and this was the return.
I believe you when you.
The song that carried it was a ballad called Hold Me. It went top 10 on the R&B chart and top 10 adult contemporary, and cracked the top 50 of the Hot 100.
You're my woman. I'll give you.
It was the first anybody had heard from him in over 2 years. On the strength of it, Love Language went gold. If Hold Me was on your car radio in the fall of '84, you remember what it felt like to hear that voice come back on. A lot of people had quietly assumed they never would. But here's the part almost nobody knows. The young woman singing with him on that record was Whitney Houston. It was her first release as a professional artist. Her first, before the debut album, before Greatest Love of All, before any of it. Nobody in America knew that name yet. So think about the shape of that. A 34-year-old legend fighting his way back from a broken neck, and the hand that helps pull him over the wall belongs to a kid who hasn't happened yet. He didn't come back on top of the industry. He came back next to a beginner, and he was fine with that.
There's something in your eyes I see.
Number 3, it changed what a stage meant.
Child and
One night turned a stage, the safest place he'd ever stood, into the most terrifying room on earth.
or would I be talking to a stone?
July 13th, 1985, Live Aid, JFK Stadium, Philadelphia. His hometown, over 100,000 people in front of him, and an estimated 1.5 billion watching on television. 3 years and 4 months since the accident, and his first live performance since. Now, everybody focuses on how brave that looks from the outside. I want you to hear what it looked like from inside his head.
Take a little time.
He said later that he'd played out every scenario he could imagine, losing control of the chair, missing notes. And the thing he was most afraid of was this.
World
Would the audience see Teddy Pendergrass, the singer, or would they see a disabled guy who used to be Teddy Pendergrass? That's the fear. Not failing, being pitied. And here's what he chose to sing. Not close the door, not turn off the lights. He sang a Diana Ross song, Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand, flanked by Ashford and Simpson.
On the street.
He said it was the right message for the event, and the right message for him. He walked out there and didn't sing a single one of his own hits.
Oh, if you can.
The cameras caught him wiping away tears before he started, and the crowd erupted. The band had to keep vamping while he pulled himself together, and then he told them he could feel their love, and that very first note he sang, it came out a little flat. You can see him wince at it on the film.
Just try a little kindness.
100,000 people did not care, not even slightly. Some of you watched that live in your living room in 1985, and you've never forgotten it. I know you're out there. Number 2, it changed what he did with the rest of his life. One night gave a man a second job he never asked for, and he took it seriously for the next 24 years. I'm going to handle this part gently, because he did. In the years after the crash, Teddy went through severe depression and insomnia, and in his autobiography, he was honest about the fact that there was a time he didn't want to keep going at all. He wrote that down, on purpose, in a book with his face on it. A man who'd spent his career being the most confident voice in the room told everybody the truth about the worst stretch of his life, because he knew somebody in a hospital bed somewhere was going to read it. And then look at what he built on the other side of it. In 1988, Joy gave him his first #1 R&B hit in nearly a decade, and the album went gold. In 1996, Testing the Water, he toured 22 cities with a gospel musical, appearing on stage for one single song a night. One song. That's how carefully he rebuilt it. In 1998 came the book, Truly Blessed, and he founded the Teddy Pendergrass Alliance, dedicated to helping people with spinal cord injuries find their way back into education and employment. His whole message came down to one idea: don't look at people with pity, because disability doesn't mean inability. And here's what he did with the date itself. In 2007, after he'd already retired, he came back one more time for an event called Teddy 25, held to mark the 25th anniversary of the crash, raise money for his charity, and honor the people who'd helped him. He took the worst date on his calendar and turned it into a fundraiser. He had colon cancer surgery in June of 2009, went home, then went back in with respiratory issues. He died on January 13, 2010, at 59 years old. Doctors gave him 10 years in 1982. He took 28. Whether this industry ever really squared up with what he gave it, I'll let you decide that one. Number 1, it changed the ending. It never touched the voice.
I ain't gonna do nothing.
This is the one that actually matters. That night changed his body. It changed his career, his finances, his name, his breath, his future. It changed all of it. It never once got near the voice. Here's the proof, and it's the strangest thing on this whole list.
Think about it, I think you're about to do.
In 1972, a 21-year-old Teddy Pendergrass sang lead on If You Don't Know Me By Now for Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes.
You don't push us.
It went to #1 on the Soul chart and top 10 on the Hot 100. The song had originally been written for Patti LaBelle's group, and they couldn't record it because of scheduling.
Fight.
It fell to him almost by accident. Now watch this. 17 years later, in 1989, the English band Simply Red covered it and took their version all the way to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Between right and wrong, yeah.
It won the Grammy for Best R&B Song, 7 years after the crash. Teddy is in a wheelchair in Philadelphia, and the song he built with his own chest is the biggest record in America, sung by somebody else, winning an R&B Grammy.
At my happy home. You know,
And you know what's wild? He didn't lose anything in that. Because ask anybody who actually knows, ask the people in your family, which version is the one?
everybody. Wake up.
You already know the answer. You knew it before I finished the sentence. The original was later named one of the Ria's songs of the century.
Don't you get excited when I go.
Wake up, everybody. That's Teddy on lead. Got picked up as a rallying cry to mobilize voters in 2004 and covered by everybody from Simply Red to Patti LaBelle.
Only act like children when we argue, fuss.
Hip-hop kept sampling him for 30 years. In 2021, he was inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, and in 2023, Rolling Stone ranked him the 42nd greatest singer of all time.
Like I'm trying to understand you.
One Night in 1982 rewrote every single chapter that came after it. It never got a note.
Home a little late at night.